to convene this meeting of the Barnstable County Commissioners. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silence, especially on this day. 70 years ago this day, we were attacked by the Empire of Japan. So many things have happened since then, but we should think about that. Thank you. First part of our meeting will be public comment. And who is here for public comment? Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for putting the town lists of county services on the website. And I sent it to our league board. And I would like to suggest that perhaps you could do a press release with a blurb about what is there and how to access it. Because I think I was there when you brought it to the selectmen in Eastham. I'm afraid it stops there. And I think this is important information. It would be great to have a press release that just lets people know where things are that you do and that some people may really take interest and look. So thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent suggestion.
Anybody else here for public comment? Did you have some public comment today? Or are you just visiting?
We're happy observers.
Yeah. We're not on your agenda?
No. We thought that you were going to vote for our recommendation.
Yeah, the vote on the EDC is.
Oh, it might be in your actions.
It is in the actions.
It's the summary of actions.
Okay.
Okay.
Right there.
We're happy to wait.
Yes.
We'll wait our turn.
It's all educational.
All righty.
Okay, I believe that then, Stacy, you're on.
I had approached,
Excuse me, you have to identify yourself.
I'm sorry, Stacy Gallagher, Director of Children's Cove. I had approached Mark about a possibility of funding for some equipment that we need for videotaping purposes at the Cove. So the history on this is we are the only county that does not videotape our forensic interviews, and I've been working on that for the last 5 years. It was finally approved by the district attorney's office, really pushed by all of the chiefs of police. So that's where it started. It took probably about 6 months to approve it. They came to me and stated that they would do it, and now we are looking for the appropriate videotaping equipment. We have videotape equipment in one room, but we need to do it in the other room. The first interview room is outdated equipment. So I've gotten one quote at least on the equipment that we will need for videotaping purposes, starting hopefully January 1. So
Do you have any questions?
Well, what are we talking about cost here?
The one quote I got, and I know I need to get a few, but this is a company that most of the child advocacy centers in Massachusetts utilize, so they've done all of this before, and with everything included, the total quote is about $7,500.
And I guess there must be a criteria, or is there some sort of licensing that gives, I mean, this isn't something that you can do in-house with clinicians and do your own videotaping.
No, this is strictly.
It has to come from an outside,
the
an
equipment,
independent.
The equipment does.
Oh, the equipment.
We do everything.
I see.
So
Yeah, you're buying
So you're
stuff,
buying
not
the
a service.
equipment.
We're not buying a service.
Yeah.
We process the evidence for police, and everything goes to the police departments. So whatever we produce becomes evidence.
Okay.
And one goes to the DA's office and one goes to the police department for evidence.
So that goes in conjunction with your written summary of what was said
Utilized in court,
that,
yeah.
so that way they have both
Yeah.
of those things.
So,
and they
the
match.
purpose of it really is, we're really behind in the times of not utilizing the service, and it's something that they've done for 20 years throughout the country. Those tapes can be utilized in court when necessary. and they're not sitting behind a mirror with law enforcement, DCF, and everybody else kind of writing all kinds of different
Yeah,
things
they're
and trying to
interpreting,
keep
they're
up,
subjective
interpreting.
interpretations, yeah.
So you get a clean interview on a DVD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Yeah.
I had one. You say a clean interview, but I thought the whole idea of the focus group setup was to allow for a therapeutic liaison to occur between the interview in the single room and the people that are observing outside. What happens to the issue with regard to the protection of the confidentiality of the...
These are, forensic interviews aren't confidential. The confidentiality of the child is maintained because it becomes police evidence, just like a police report. So those names aren't put out, but confidentiality, it's not therapeutic at all. It's very different from our therapeutic sessions. Therapy will not be videotaped at all. So that confidentiality remains.
There are two things that are listed in our reports when we go to the towns.
Mm-hmm.
One is the sane interviews, and the other is the therapy.
Yep.
Okay. This is only going to be used for the sane.
This is just the same. Yeah, and also for the extended forensic interview, which we call the EFI, that's a separate, if the same doesn't go anywhere, we go to a separate EFI.
Right.
Just for prosecution purposes, nothing to do with therapy at all.
So I also, when Stacy contacted me, I asked Darlene Johnson Morris from RDO to see if there's any grant funds that may be available. So she's looking. She didn't have high hopes because it's a short time frame, and you guys are trying to get this done for January. So, but she's giving it a shot. So, if we're lucky, we'd come up with something. But in the meantime, I did prepare a supplemental budget ordinance from the statutory reserve funds for $8,000 that if you guys wish to approve today, you can bring over to the assembly and submit it.
Do you have any other?
Well, I'm just thinking, you'd like to have this straightened out by January 1st, correct?
Well, we'd like to have it I understand the assembly process, and we'd like
Do
to have
you?
it installed by,
Could you explain
I
it to
know
me?
they, well,
Okay.
not the
Don't-
whole
don't go
assembly
there.
process right now. We would like to start videotaping January 1. We know it's a quick turnover, but they also understand that we need to find the funding for it.
Right.
And I let the DA's office know that I would approach the county, considering it would be county property as well.
That's for signature. That's the paper.
Okay, so...
Yeah, I see the whole sense in this. I've been there before myself, so, it is procedure in many places, including Maryland, where I participated in this, and it will help determine, is there a case or is there not a case? That's basically
Right.
part of the forensic gathering. So, because of time, I would go ahead and approve that.
Just to touch on the timing, so you submit today. It's possible, maybe likely, that they have a hearing on this on the 21st of December. But they probably wouldn't vote on it on the 21st of December. They'll probably vote on it at their first meeting in January, which would be...
First.
Yeah,
What's the first meeting after the
second, third, the fourth, I think it's...
4th of January. That's when they reorganize as well. 4th of January. Okay, so we need a motion then to
I
get
guess
this underway.
how will that affect you if you don't get a vote until the 4th?
We have to install it either way. I just am going to have to find the funding. This was my first step. We put it out for grants. I'm going to have to find the funding. And the company that I'm working with knows that. I'm going to have to find the funding.
Well, what if you didn't install it? I mean, so I'm a little confused. You haven't been recording them now,
Yeah.
so we're talking about 2 months. So
I
it's
mean, we
been,
can
how many
essentially,
years?
if they approve it on the 4th, we can essentially have them
Exactly.
get
yeah.
ready for the 2nd or 3rd week of January. I mean,
Right.
our goal was to have it the first.
You can have all of the background work done so that when the funding becomes
It's
available...
ready, they're
it's
ready to go.
basically-
As soon as it's approved, yeah.
They're
Right.
ready to go. They said they can just get the stuff and be installed in 5 hours.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
can be all
All right.
set. So we can wait.
I think the key thing that I hear in this is that the this is a requirement that grows out of the forensic responsibility that you have in this interview process.
Right.
And without it, are you out of compliance with any statutes or regulations?
It's not a mandated statute. It's highly recommended. You know, there's 900 child advocacy centers in the nation, and we're one
I'm just
of
talking about Massachusetts.
Yeah, I mean, we're the only county that doesn't do it. Regulation-wise, no, we're not.
Other counties in Massachusetts are doing it?
They all are. Yeah, they all have been
Okay.
since the
I
beginning.
think it's important to know that,
Yeah.
because as we present this to the
Right.
Assembly, I think the emphasis should be on, we are the only ones that are left out. of
Right,
this.
right.
Well, it's a
And we've
tool
been in
that we're
existence
no
for
longer,
14
it's a
years.
modern technology tool that's being utilized, and we're the ones that are behind on that,
Right.
and,
I mean, as we present it to the Assembly.
Well, I
we'll-
think the understanding to the Assembly too is when these are presented in court, if you don't have a videotape, you're losing the essential pieces of seeing the child disclosed.
Right, you're going on people's
It's really
reporting.
digital. It's not a videotape, is it?
It's a deep,
That's what they call it.
it's
Yeah,
it's DVD.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Y-
Yeah.
y-
Video, VCR.
No.
Yeah, it's a recording of the initial intake,
Mhm.
and that helps establish, is there a case or not? Right now, you're observing and making notes. Some of that can be objective, subjective, so this is this is so that the courts
They see
and the
directly
police
what
can
the child
actually
said.
take a look themselves. and-
I was just talking about the technical part of it,
Right.
because videotape is sort of
Right.
ancient.
Yeah, but it's all of the parties
It's
are
like renting
protected in
barrels
this
on the
one.
highway.
No.
So it's
Okay,
really-
so I
Okay.
need a motion to.
I would move approval.
Yeah, second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's get to some motion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I will hear
If you get that
about the
funding
board.
now, we all bets. Yeah, if we get a grant.
If I hear about it, I'll email it.
Or,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
an
donate
exceptional
too.
donation.
Yeah, thank you.
And Stacy, you have one more weekend of your Festival of Trees, is that right? That is a
Friday.
fundraising
Friday and the drawing is on Saturday.
on Saturday, so if anyone wants to take a look and put bids on those beautiful trees that
Yeah,
are over at the
beautiful.
JFK Museum, they can do so until Friday.
Until Friday.
All right, and that will
Thank
support Children's Cove.
I will.
Okay,
Thank you.
good, thanks.
Okay, do you want to go through the summary? Do we have a few minutes before?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, just,
I would like to hold items 4 and 5 for discussion. That's related to the EDC.
yes, okay. And I just, what is a new fund for DHCD? It's under number 2B.
Yes, that was a new fund we must have received a grant from Housing and Community Development. We always set up a new fund for
All right,
any
okay.
grants we receive.
All right, and execute subordination of
Oh,
mortgage.
it must go with A, because A has the new year's.
Oh, it's the new
district
technical
local
assistance
technical
grant
assistance
funding, okay, that we
So that's what
received.
that's for.
And then there's execute a subordination of mortgage.
Subordination of mortgages are pertaining to the housing monies that we get from the federal government.
Oh, okay,
that-
so it's the mortgages that are,
Yes.
Through the housing program.
We have to agree, since Paul is loaning them some of that money, to subordinate the mortgage.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you.
And that's something we do customarily.
Right, I just was making sure we didn't have an outstanding mortgage.
We're not giving any
Of our own.
DHCD.
Yeah,
No.
That would never happen when I
No,
was
I
here,
understand.
since I've been fighting with them at the Housing Authority for all year about them
Yes.
stealing our reserves, putting people out in the street.
okay, so with that, I will
wait a minute.
go with Pat's
Okay.
Well, we'll
motion
move
to hold
4 and 5.
4 and 5 for discussion
second
with,
Okay, then with no further discussion, with the exception of 4 and 5, all those in favor?
aye.
Okay. So
Okay,
that-
items
that's it.
4.
4 and 5, do you want to discuss
It's
those?
well, it's an amendment of the SEDS,
I believe that's it.
Implementation.
right, program, and maybe either David or Felicia might like to comment on that, or maybe you don't. As you may know, we voted at the recommendation of the EDC that that the EDC would fund the SEDS project for 3 years, at $350,000 a year for 3 years. And that has recently come to a conclusion. we made the final payment, I think,
Yes,
just
this year.
recently, did we not?
Yep, we certainly did. We
So
transferred
now,
it on.
the EDC has been in discussions with Paul Zielinski and others related to where we go from here. Paul had always said that if they couldn't complete it in 3 years, then maybe it wasn't worth doing. But actually, a lot has been done in 3 years, but there's still pieces to it that need completion. So the EDC has agreed to fund from the license plate money an additional $290,000 for the next 2 years. Is that correct? Felicia, why don't you
Yes, well,
explain?
thank you.
Would you identify yourself?
Yeah, Felicia Penn, Vice Chair for the Cape Cod Economic Development Council. Thanks for allowing us to be on the agenda today. I gave you some backup information here for you. One is the proposal that we received from the commission for implementation of years 3, 4, and 5. And the first few pages are background, the first 4 pages actually are background. And then you can see their plan to go forward in the individual projects that they're looking at. But just to speed along, because you can look at that anytime you'd like, on the last 2 pages, page 20 and 21, is an actual budget. And then you can see on the very last page, the projects listed on the left with the EDC contribution, Cape Cod Commission contribution, any matching grants. There's Delta grants and EDA grants, DEP grants, et cetera, et cetera. So our money is being leveraged quite fully, and then some, more than 100%, obviously, in order for this implementation. Just to get back to what Pat Flynn mentioned, when the commission first came to us about the sets, and of course it's the best sets document that the local feds have ever seen. We've got accolades on that initial document when they accepted it and approved it. When they first came to us, we did a little pushback saying you can't do this in 3 years. And as Pat said, they basically said, well, if we can't do it in 3, it's really not worth doing. We said, well, you really should take 5. And they've now accepted our challenge to do it in 5, which is nice. In the first 3 years, it was $350 a year for each of 3 years. And now they're requesting slightly less than, what we're calling it, up to $290,000 for years 4 and 5. So that being what it was, the EDC actually had a separate meeting on November 18th, I believe it was, focused specifically on their request for year 4 and 5 funding. One of the first things we did was review the back history, not of the sets, but also of previous grants and what we've been doing over the years. So everybody was on the same page. And the second thing we did, which is your second page of handouts here, was review the license plate dollars as to where we stand now. And this information basically in the green was received by Gail Coyne at the commission, and estimates in fiscal year 2013 in the yellow is just a worksheet that I did based on the information that she gave us. This actually can change, as you know, but the last report we got from Paul Rummel was that our receipts in October were actually up over what they were the previous year. So that's very encouraging in these economic times. So it seems that the funding for the license plates is remaining steady, if not increasing a little bit, but it's pretty trustworthy. So at the end of our specific meeting on this, the EDC unanimously voted to recommend to you that we support years 4 and 5 of the SEDS. As you know, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, the SEDS, has been a leading document. From that has sprung Smarter Cape efforts, et cetera, and it's basically our constitution for economic development going forward for the next 2 years, and we really see it as a very well laid out roadmap for the area. So we did make a unanimous recommendation that you support the request for funding for years 4 and 5. And happy to answer any questions.
Well, I just, wanted to comment, I was there when that proposal, I happened to be at that EDC meeting, and, I think what a lot of people keep, wanting to see is sort of like, how is that government going to create jobs, and is that the role of government? And I don't think it is. It's the role to set the environment for job creation and that sort of thing. And in many ways, that is exactly where this money is going. It's going in with these teams. They're helping the towns dramatically. Those that requested Sandwich, again, Bud Dunham gave a big layout on that during this special commission, one of those meetings. There's extensive work going on in Bourne. There was extensive work in Yarmouth, and that is ongoing. So these are towns in Harwich about the revitalization of their towns, and it's.
They just did a complete Main Street landscape, et cetera, plan for the town of Orleans also.
Right. So it is money well spent, and it's well spent in thought of going forward in the future and helping towns sift through all of these things they know how to do, but don't have the capability and the technical assistance to get through it. So even though people want to see, something big, it is big and it's ongoing. And I just applaud again the EDC for having, the courage of seeing that and in supporting that and seeing our way towards the future here, because it's bigger than. We built this or this happened, like an Open Cape. When is the next Open Cape? Open Cape is now is now the lifeline to many of these different ideas and projects which are being, teased out over the next few years. So I think it's money well spent.
Just a brief comment on what Sheila said. She's right when she said it's not government's job to create jobs, and that's not, the EDC is creating public-private partnerships. That's through the SEDS project, that's what this funding allows, is those partnerships to happen. Both, not only with the commission or with the county and the towns, but also the towns with the private sector. And the Orleans plan is a great example of that, because the private sector has to do its job on the revitalization of Main Street. It's not government that does it all. They have a big role to play because they have to partner up and go along with it too. I think David wants to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to that issue, we have been clear from the outset, at least at the county EDC, that it's really not our role to create jobs. It's our role to create the infrastructure from which the private sector can then create jobs and businesses and entrepreneurialism.
Right. And I think that's successfully going forward.
And this has been a very successful project, and I think it would be very wise for us to continue it. So I would make a motion that we accept the recommendation for the $290,000 for 2 years for the
I second.
EDC.
And I would add to that there's with great pleasure that I think that this is going forward. The communication and cooperation between the EDC and the Cape Cod Commission is more evidence of us working together, and I think that's all to the good.
Right, and there's also a stronger partnership with the chamber now, where everybody is sort of working together in a way that didn't happen before. So
with that, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to
And
comment?
yes, you have one more.
One
Yes,
more
you
set.
made a
Yes, you have.
recommendation.
That's number 5.
Their recommendation for election appointments, excuse me.
Just one question.
Yes, sir.
Has Dan Wolf agreed to continue?
He has.
Oh, okay. I just wondered.
I
I think it's wonderful.
Mr. Willett had the wonderful opportunity to speak with Senator Wolf about his position on the EDC, and I think
Yes,
Dick can speak
and
to
Senator Wolf was very passionate that he feels he's in a better spot than ever to help the county and the EDC, and he will be able to make certain meetings, but he's very passionate about being part of the county. It's a great thing to have him.
Yeah, I think
We're
so
so
too.
lucky that, that he does have this
Yeah.
success. Yeah, really. But that, you can understand why, with as much as on his plate, I wonder whether or not we were, we
Oh,
could show
very
him
much so.
a
Very
weapon or something.
But remember, he's like a founding member too.
So
Yes, he was, wasn't
Yes.
he? Yes,
And he does-
both of us were.
he doesn't give that up easily.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
So the four,
There are 4 recommendations for
Right,
3-year
it's,
terms.
Let's see, Brian.
Ken Cirillo, Brian Manal,
And I'll,
Senator
Dan
Dan Wolf, and Jay Zavala.
okay, so is Ken Cirillo able to spend the time? Because I know that he's.
These,
been
all
very busy.
people, all of them have agreed. These are
Okay.
all done with the
Okay.
consultation with the
And,
prospective appointments.
Now that you've asked, Mr. Cirillo is newly engaged, and he, I know, has been working very closely with David on programs, speakers, long-range planning, et cetera.
that's wonderful.
So,
He is
yep.
re-engaged, he has the time, and he's on
He also
the,
serves on the grants committee.
Grants Committee.
That's great. I know that when he is, in time past, when on the Tech Council and other places that I've served with him, when he's engaged, he's terrific, but, the question is, does he have the time to do it?
He
Okay,
remains engaged.
very good.
I can verify.
So I would move the 4 appointments.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion here? None, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming.
Our
It's our
pleasure.
pleasure.
Okay, it's almost 2:30. Do we have any other bits and pieces that we can get done? I guess we can just start signing and,
I can do my report if you wish.
No, it's a very good idea.
we'll get that out of the way.
It's a fairly short one, just a couple of things. If you would pass that down, please, and this one. So the first thing, I was approached by Superior Court, and they are looking for some additional storage space for some of their materials. And I've authorized John Blaisdell to prepare some secure space in the old jail for storage. We have Cape Cod Commission stuff that we're storing over there. Health Department has some storage that we've set up over there. So I'm providing them some storage.
Do they pay for that? Or is
You
that
have to
all
be-
included in their rent?
Yet to be determined. Theoretically, it should impact their lease with the county, but whether they actually pay it or not, we'll have to see. But I'm doing it out of the goodness of our relations with the courts, because we're good landlords. I'm just reminding you, I'm sure you're all aware, next Wednesday is the Smarter Cape visioning session. It's Wednesday, December 14th, 9:30 to noon at the Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater. So I'm assuming you're all going to be going to that.
I am bringing the new town manager from Falmouth.
Good.
So that he gets oriented to regionalization
There's
efforts on
the
Cape
info
Cod.
on that if you're
Early.
Yeah.
curious. And just a reminder, your annual holiday party is Wednesday the 21st from noon to 2 o'clock, right in here.
Right.
So those invitations have gone out, so hopefully that will be a good turnout. It's usually a good turnout.
Can I ask, who do we invite to that, other than the assembly, the people in the courthouse here, our, staff? Does that go out to all our departments?
Yeah.
Does it go out to anybody beyond employees or?
All the employees show up.
No, I'm saying just go
Employees,
beyond.
obviously. Yeah, like a county council. And
Yeah, I mean,
those
you
types of
send it to the
things.
EDC and all of those,
Everybody
everybody gets
should
it?
get an invitation.
Any
yes.
of the,
Anybody that's
It was-
connected with the activities of the county
Yes.
have always been invited.
I guess that's a good way to put it, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, like Children's Cove and,
Oh, yeah. oh,
Others,
certainly.
yeah.
Yeah, well, those are our departments, I'm
no,
just.
I know, but I mean,
Let's say it's about as merry as we can make it without the
Yes.
addition
Does
of
the league
of
get
beverage
an
of choice.
invitation?
No, but you're certainly welcome to join us.
Thank you.
And the press, I don't know if we invite them.
Anytime free
We
food
don't wanna
is
feel
around,
anybody
they show
out.
up. But
When
no,
is
they
it?
certainly are welcome.
Yes,
as
they
well.
can
Yeah.
film it if they want, or
Yeah.
take notes on other conversations.
Eavesdrop. So.
Well,
I will say
no
that
adult
it's-
beverages in sight
I know,
to
yeah,
to loosen
it's not
tongues.
as-
so.
I will say that it's something that is really appreciated, I think, by the staff, by the courts. They do appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and it is a good opportunity for all of those entities to come together, so.
Yeah.
And the food is excellent, so.
yeah,
Yeah,
Chef Roland.
Roland.
Chef Roland.
Anything
So that's all,
else?
that's
So-
really all I had for that.
Okay, well, it's 2:30, so it's time
The-
to finish your evaluation.
Well, mine's in my computer, so I have to send it to you.
Okay, well, we're ready to go
I think
ahead.
what we were trying to do, if we left it last time, I revised the goals based on the discussion. So sort of a two-step. If you can finalize the goals, that would be good. Then I think the three of you have to sort of share your comments and come up with a single rating, and that's
Right.
sort of up to you. That's not really up to me.
Well, I think Pat and I,
Well, we have already agreed on the ratings, but
That's without mine.
that's without Sheila's, so that needs to be folded into the
Okay, all right.
rating.
So
And then,
maybe, Mr. Chairman, you want to volunteer to compile that? And then
Yeah, and
bring it
he'll have it by,
forward?
he'll have it
And,
this afternoon.
was that the
Yeah.
one that we were going to get last week?
and I mentioned to Bill that I think over the holidays, or sometime, I will write up a procedure for the evaluation, the timeline, and the due date, and each one's responsibility and how it gets done, so that when it goes out, everybody knows exactly what to do and
Yeah,
the
oh,
timelines
that's
are,
fine,
just to
yeah.
kind of smooth it along.
Actually, I have to
So
say,
it doesn't-
I don't know how we got to this point. Bill's, I was looking at it because he asked for a copy. His was dated 8/26.
Right.
So somehow we got lost in the shuffle.
Right.
So, in any case, we're agreed on the goals, as I recall.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll take it.
Do you want to just kind of read them off, so
Sure.
you can,
Okay, there are, expand the current building inspector regional programs to additional towns, and that we're hoping that the additional towns would participate. That was one of your measures. The task would be to solicit additional participating towns for building inspector service, hire inspector, or expand hours of existing inspector.
I was wondering too, because I think that's,
Well, I have.
Sheila has one here.
Yep.
I'm
Here, here's the,
This was the original one, this is the other one, so.
these are the ones that.
I think that could really help lay a framework for other kinds of regional services.
Right.
And I know with the town managers, the meeting, I think it's next
Tomorrow.
week. Oh, is it tomorrow?
Yep.
And I know they're going to talk about that list
They have
that
a list.
the Bob Lawton and
Yep.
Bud Dunham and Charlie Sumner put together in terms of
I
all the
think everybody did
services
see this because this
Yeah.
was distributed as
I think
part
we
of the
got a
special
lot of
at the
commission.
special commission meeting. And I think, I was talking to the two town managers and one ex, about that a lot of the leadership in terms of how these regional services would make sense for the towns is something that they could do. And that maybe they wanted to create some sort of a subcommittee.
Well,
Yeah, that's one of the things we talked about, is develop with town a regional services committee.
yeah, it's in his, you sent,
Yeah.
this was your
Something we
original, and then you
talked about.
updated your
I sent a new
goals,
one,
the
yeah.
second one.
Yeah.
And I do think this is more concise, and I like it, and I'm glad that you put that in there.
Yeah.
Because it is, the first step of collaborating with them and thinking through these things, much like the intermunicipal committee of cooperation is doing down in the Outer Cape. They're
Right.
coming to where they can sort of share services, and I think that if we were in the room and help facilitate that conversation with either sub-regions, the way they're doing, because
Yeah.
it's easier for them. I mean, there's some things that are much easier for them to group together and unnecessary for
Right.
some of the larger towns, and what would be beneficial to the larger towns.
Well, just so you know too, I just had a conversation with George Heufelder today from the health department, and so these things sort of do take place, and George is working on one for the Outer Cape, because he was actually approached by Paul for health inspection services. So he's trying to
Right.
piece something together out there.
Right.
And there's these impediments sometimes, and sometimes it's money, and sometimes it's territory, and those types of things. But I think we're at a point where a lot of that gets, we were able to overcome a lot of those impediments at this point in time.
I really believe that that for a lot of ideas like this and projects like this, that their time just comes around. If you try to do it too soon, you get pushback.
Yeah, I agree with
People
you,
aren't
yeah.
ready for it. But after a while, as people begin to mull it over, all of a sudden, it becomes their time.
coalesce,
And
yeah.
I think that I think even the managers are ready to to move on something.
Yeah,
like that.
I'm sure they are.
And that's where it's got to happen, because they're the ones that are going to oversee it anyway.
You know,
not the select.
although I would say, this is sort of how fast some of these things happen and don't happen. Originally, when we talked a couple of weeks ago, assessing was on the list, and I've changed that now because an assessing report came out that was done with money from the Technical Services Grant, and that report wasn't really favorable. So, and again, I don't think, sort of, haven't had a chance to kind of really digest it yet, but I don't think that we should give up on assessing.
No.
I think it's in that pile where you say, well, maybe it's just not right.
It's far more complex than it is to do
It is,
inspection.
Yeah.
there's a lot of
services and
components,
buildings.
but that's again, where if you have an established committee, you know, why would this be a good idea, why would it not be a good
Yeah.
idea? And
Who's
what's
willing to
keeping
do it?
it from being
But
being something
But
that's
the big
feasible?
thing with the assessing is that there has to be a database that includes every single parcel on Cape Cod.
Well, it's a streaming.
That if you're going to do centralized assessing, there has to be that database. And then each of the towns obviously have their own database.
Yeah.
Whether they, and the softwares are different. There are 3 or 4 different types of software that I'm sure towns are using, different ones. And then they have to update those. And maybe not every town has the same schedule for updating. I think
Yeah.
it's every 3 years or something, that there's a reval that has to be done. So, but I think somebody said one time, there's a time for everything and everything in its time. And this will eventually, I believe, come to be, because it will make sense at some point.
I think that was in the Bible.
It was in the Bible?
Something about, to every day there was a season, every time.
Well, I've been into Greek
That's the mamas
philosophy
and the
lately, so
papas.
maybe
That's right.
Huh?
Yeah, I was trying to remember the group.
It's the mamas and the
Yeah.
papas, yeah.
The mamas, there's a time for everything and everything in its
Turn,
time.
turn, turn.
But it's true.
Around the
It's
yard.
really very
Yeah.
true.
Are you following the?
It happens
Start dating
all
yourself,
the
Sheila.
time.
Yeah, that's, I just threw out a
Maybe
big
you have
date
to
with
live long
myself.
enough to see that.
All right, yeah. Okay, all right, so let's get back to this.
But Harry Morgan died today, you know, he did.
Oh, he did?
Colonel Potter, and that's what they said. They say he's Colonel Potter.
Really?
I don't remember him as Colonel Potter. He's the guy on Dragnet. It was with
He was the second
Yeah, but he
guy,
was
right?
in-
He was
With,
the second cop.
Webb?
Yeah,
What was his
yeah.
name?
Jack Webb.
Jack Webb.
Harry
yeah.
Harry Morgan, yeah, he was the.
Of course, I remember him as Colonel Potter.
Yeah, well, I remember Jack, of course, I remember.
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
96.
we're going down
he
in the-
passed away.
96, wow.
Okay, so you've consolidated the goals as we'd asked you to do.
Right.
You've looked them over. I think that we're all, unless we have some substantial disagreement about those, I think that that'd be one thing we could put to rest.
Well, maybe just let me highlight a couple of
Yes.
bills. So that was on the regional program where we sort of have these things. The next one's on energy environment, and I think for now at least we're going to continue to do the CVAC thing through the county, and that's fine. You know, they have to sort of decide how they're going forward. But I think the highlight on this one is with these new PV solar installations coming online, we have to come up with a better way of billing the towns, because how it is that the CVAC takes possession of the power, they pay the vendors who are doing the solar system, we turn around and bill the towns for the same amount of energy that they are using, really. And their benefit is they get the net metering credit but the CVAC acts as a pass-through for the cash. So in order to do that efficiently, and because of all these systems, and we're going to have a much more efficient billing system. So that's one of the key components that we're working on. We're going to look at the Munis system and see if its billing software will enable us to do that. I'm going to have a demonstration on that in a couple of days. So that's something we really need to focus on.
I think at some point, if I may, I think at some point we have to be we have to look at CVAC, which is a separate operation, to see at what point do they become independent.
Well, they are independent, Bill. CVAC is completely...
In other words, because many of the things that we're doing for them as a fiscal, as a fiscal agent, and I think that, looking at efficiency of billing, is very good. But I think we have to think in terms of what kind of a timeline, does the county have, with this going forward.
Well, if I can just jump in there, I think that, here you are saying that we would be going through implementing some of, reviewing and implementing some recommendations of the MMA study, and I think
Oh, yeah. you
that
jumped
that
ahead.
does address this, and so a lot of this will be discussed and bantered around during the budget process, and I think that we do have to have more broad conversations during that time of where we want to go and how we're going to get there. And so with that caveat, I would keep those performance goals in there, but they may change.
Oh, yeah.
um,
it's depending on
by
circumstances.
the,
Yeah.
you were saying we're going to have that implemented by March. That's sort of like the budget period. So these things may change as far as your goals or our goals or someone,
Yeah.
how we're going to implement that to come out.
The other one, Sheila sort of jumped ahead to the internal operations one, and that's on there, the county commissioners review and implement approved recommendations of the MMA and the county special commission report. So I think the county special commission is now aiming to sort of finalize their stuff by their, are they meeting next Wednesday? I think?
Well, actually,
14.
14th?
yeah, but I don't think they'll have a final till
They
January.
probably, no, but probably much by the end
Right.
of the year, or certainly not too far into 2012, so.
Yeah, and that still is sort of separate from us. We have internal things and we can go ahead, even if they came out with a recommendation of a total change to the structure. That has to be, then brought out as an education piece to everyone, and then people vote on it in November. So there really won't be a finality to that. If there are real structural changes to be made that have legislation behind them or something like that, and they seem like they talk in that direction.
The voting in November is not done in the county. The voting you're talking about would be something that would be part of legislation, because I don't think we can put in a binding, if we accepted their recommendations, I don't believe that we could have a binding vote to change the
Well,
operation.
Remember, the charter specifies how it gets changed. There's a
Right.
process
Yeah.
in the charter for, and I don't want to speak because I'm not the charter expert, but
Right.
that's where you turn to see, okay, this is the document, how do you amend this document? It lays out how you do that.
Right.
And I just would say that certain things, especially things that the special commissioner are looking at, like changes to the structure of the government, require a legislative vote. Now, whether that takes place before it goes to the voters or after it goes
Right.
to the voters, there's some discretion in that, because if you remember, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it does say that it has to
It was
have approval
2000.
of the Assembly of Delegates.
It has to have that as well, right? So there's sort of three steps, but I think the next step would be the assembly. But then whether it's a voter or a legislative, I think you have some discretion on that, because I think in 2000, when we did the charter changes, we did the voters first and then the legislature.
But then it died up in the legislature.
Right.
Well, if, what Henri
But the
and,
only piece then, though, that required the legislator's full approval was because it included the transfer of the
The
sheriff's
sheriff,
functions.
and that's what held it up.
The rest of it got approved as soon as the voters did it.
Right.
This is a little different because you're changing the structure of the government, so you,
If indeed we do that.
if indeed it does that, yes.
if I recall from Rob and Henri, on their original timeline, their idea was that they wanted to get something completed before the 15th of January, so that they could get something in the pipeline for this legislation.
If they were
Yes.
indeed
Yeah.
going to.
If they were going to do that, that they wanted to have it done so that they could file this with the legislation prior to January 15th. So then it could go through that process, because this is the second year of a legislative session. And then, and whatever happens, happens. Now, where it goes from there and in what ballot it would go if there is such a change is, I don't know.
Okay, but it does leave out the one piece of
But they wanted to get something prepared to file with this legislative session, right?
But it
Not have
does-
to wait another year.
But it does require our participation in that.
Oh, yeah.
going forward.
It does
Well-
require our participation, but, we have to we have to remember that the county government was established by a group of citizens that got enough signatures and got it on the ballot themselves. We weren't
It was
part
a
of
regional
the,
government. We
the
haven't
regional
had a county
government.
government since the beginning of the
a
republic.
regional government. So if there are changes and say, we say, they just booted us, so depending on who's here, you might say, no, we don't want to do it, or the assembly will say, no, we like everything just the way it is. It takes a petition of 500 signatures for our citizens to go beyond us and go forward with that if they
That's right.
feel that
There's a
strongly
process
about
for
it.
that. That's right.
So it doesn't mean that, we have,
There's not only
Final-
one
I don't wanna-
process,
I don't
there
wanna
could
give
be
the-
several. That's
I don't
right.
want to give the public the impression that we have authorized this commission to act for us.
exactly,
Okay?
We have it.
No, I want to make it clear.
No.
We
because
don't have to
I-
approve anything.
Exactly.
right.
So we're
We may not like
waiting for their
Just don't vote for it.
recommendations, but the recommendations have to go through a process where, as Mark says, where we look at it and support it, then send it over to the assembly.
Right.
And my experience with those kinds of charter changes, because I went through 4 of them in Plymouth, and they usually extend the implementation dates almost 2 years,
Mhm.
because it takes so long
Right.
to get there. So it isn't like anything could happen within the next couple of years. very
And that's why
likely.
I think that what we know now of what we can do internally and that sort of thing
Yeah.
should be, we can address that,
We-
because it really has no impact
Well,
on
we
what
just
they're
need to
doing.
keep on going the way we are.
Right.
Because
Because we could be
this
like
could
this for a
take,
long
yeah, we
time.
could be like this for at least 2 years, if not more.
Do you want me to ask Bob Troy to clarify what the process options are out there for anything you get from the? No.
Not now, I think
No.
it's a little soon.
All right.
I think we should wait and see what
See
they
what
come
they
up
come
with.
back, okay. That's a fair point. Because they could say, we're not gonna do anything?
They,
That's always, that's
We don't
always a
know.
choice.
yeah,
Okay.
Uh,
So,
I think, go ahead.
I just was, to highlight another one of the
Yeah.
internal operations, we're constantly trying to improve the IT performance and their service, and we're implementing the whole IT new EON study. So one of the things you suggested, and also I think it's a good idea, probably Maggie and I are going to look at doing that, kind of the peer review for my review and for her review. I think that's a good, that came up last time,
Mhm.
not specifically in here, but
Yes.
that's something we should explore further. But we'd like to do a user satisfaction survey for the IT thing, because I think that would
I think that would be where peer review would be very useful.
Yeah.
We continue to be behind on, let's say, on the activity of that.
Yeah, I think it
I
would
don't
be
think we're
helpful,
behind,
because
Bill.
I think that, remember, a year from now, we're going to have Open Cape. And I think it would be really useful if maybe early in January, we had a session, perhaps, one of our meetings devoted to the long range, the short and long-term goals of IT.
Yeah,
Where we want to be by next January, and what steps we need to take after that
okay.
to really bring the county up to this 1 gigabyte per second, or whatever it is.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, we're going to have capability that's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
So how long is it going to take us to be able to be a full user of that
That's a
capacity?
good idea. So what I'll try to do is put the commission and IT, when we do the budget reviews, next to each other, so that we can kind of have some overlap and
Yeah, because I
talk
always
about
thought
that.
that somehow, they have an IT, we have an IT, that if we had, what do I say, specific goals that were broad, but also far-reaching, that also corresponded with what the commission needs as well. I mean, they probably have things that we could possibly use as well.
Well, I think their needs are a little different.
They are
That's-
different, 'cause
The whole GIS
obviously
piece
for
is a little
planning and all
different,
that, I don't
yeah.
know what they do.
And then the data storage piece.
Right. But at some
But
point,
yeah.
we're going to have Open Cape with a huge capacity to store information.
Right.
And we need to be able to see how we fit into that. So I think some meeting in early January would be helpful.
I think
So
that's a
that's
good
good.
idea. So why don't you schedule that as far as, how long do you want to spend, or do you want to spend a
At
day?
least
or-
an hour or
Well, let's see how, I think, how you guys do the budget reviews. But part of that can be this kind of bigger
This long,
question.
this kind
So
of
we'll try
planning
to,
session.
I'll put IT and commission sort of so that they'll, at the end of IT or the end of the commission, we can then kind of have this more general. So IT's here, Cape Cod Commission is here, so we can have that discussion.
And I'll also propose that we have, I mean, we're going to have a lot of different discussions, I think, coming up in this budget process. So, you know, we may want to even schedule additional meetings.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
not just our Wednesday meeting for many hours. I mean, it's going to take more time so that we can have these types of conversations and really put that into our long-range planning of the budget, not just an annual budget, but prolonged.
Maybe in that first week or so, we should just have a
How are
Friday
we looking at
strategy.
Friday?
Yeah, like a strategic session
yeah,
in terms
right.
of what are the strategic resources
Issues.
we need to think about for the coming year.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll look at the schedule either the first week or the second week. Then we'll put either a Monday or a Friday, extra special, a special commissioners meeting.
Yeah,
to
for
talk
those
about.
conversations.
And then the training piece, the other one that I have out there, we're going to do some sensitivity training. I thought I had that on there, but I don't see it. So.
Yeah, you do have it on there, I saw.
Wait,
Okay,
training
maybe I
workshops,
printed out
yeah.
the wrong one that's in front of me. But yeah, it's time we're going to do both the ethics training.
It's number
This is-
5 on the
It's the
internal
next year.
operations.
Oh, okay. And some sensitivity training. It's been a couple of years since we did the it's kind of sensitivity and awareness training, so we'll do that. You're going to be the first person there. You're sitting in front. Because you have to do that every couple of years for your staff, so we'll do that. And we have resources to do it. EAP, our EAP provider can do it. Maya can do it. Yeah, there's a bunch of different resources we can turn to.
The other thing I think we need to think about in our strategic planning is performance-based budgeting. You know,
We have done that.
I mean,
you know.
as it's actually defined by SCMA, you know, they have
Yeah.
a whole thing on performance-based budgeting. And-
Well, the way the budget goes out is they are supposed to identify their performance goals
Right.
and their measures. I think they're pretty good, our department managers are pretty good at doing that. I think where we're not so good is kind of following up on tracking the measures and where we are and linking the measures to the numbers. That's
Right.
always the
But
harder
that's an
part.
essential
And linking
part of
the people,
performance
the
budgeting.
individual.
I know, that's the hard part. That's, I
Yeah,
think, the part
yeah.
where we can certainly do better.
Yeah, so we have to be more
We have to
specific.
beef that piece of it up.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it sound like,
No, but I
we're
meant
just
sort of
throwing
an
numbers around.
educational piece,
Yeah.
on, but not doing it, just kind of laying.
Get somebody in
laying
mind
some
to do
groundwork.
like a facility. You need sort of somebody to walk
Yeah, you
through it.
do.
Well, actually, part of that would be some type of a variance reporting as far as meeting measures.
Oh, you know who does that? Michael, is it Michael O'Rourke? Remember he was the town manager, was it Natick or Norwood? He's doing that now,
Oh, is he?
I think, yeah.
All right. Oh, yeah.
He
All right.
and there's another one, he's no longer a town manager. Michael O'Rourke and I've forgotten who else. There's another one, they work together. And maybe checking with him, he could, it'd be great to have just an overview of what it means and the impacts of it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think you sort of need somebody to help you
Do that.
figure
And
out what
he's-
you
yeah.
need to do.
And you
how
have
need
to,
get
I mean, you have to do training on it and all of
Yeah.
that. But, I mean, I think we should look at it and see what are the benefits to
Yeah.
us of doing that. I mean, we need to know what the benefits are, or does it make sense to do it,
You
right?
know what would be a very good person to have come in and talk with us is, let me say his first name wrong, is it William Rutherford?
Warren.
Oh, Warren.
Warren.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Warren
He
does
was
that
with the
stuff.
W.
Yeah.
Warren does that stuff.
Warren,
Warren
yeah,
does
and
it
he's,
too?
and he's done tremendous
He's worked
reports
for
on
the,
regionalization
He's done
and.
the Donahue
Well,
Center?
that's,
Yeah,
that's,
he
he
has
is
done-
different than.
Yeah, but I mean, but
Yeah.
he's, you know, he was with the town he was
Right, he was on
with
the
the town of
council.
Barnstable, yeah,
Yep.
so
Years
he's very
ago.
good
Yeah,
at
Warren is
this.
very impressive.
So,
Okay.
I
Yeah, I
would
got a
suggest
couple
reaching out
names.
to him,
Okay.
and maybe
Yeah.
having him come and talk to us and we figure out
You know,
how
since
we'd
you got a
like
couple of
to.
names, maybe we ought to get a bid from,
What are the
You would have
Well,
to
you
get
have
a
to do
quote.
an RFP.
You have to do a
you
quote.
know, an RFP and get a proposal
Yeah.
together as to what, and I think that would, you mentioned a couple of people that could be very good at doing it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of.
As a matter of fact, I believe that, you mentioned Warren Rutherford's name, I believe that he did offered some studies that were, Martha's Vineyard, they're very similar to what the special commission is doing now.
He's done some great studies, so he would be interesting to have just come and talk with us.
I think he might
On
be
an
more
informal
interested if he was
basis.
on the clock.
Right.
Hey, do we have anything else on your goals you want to go over?
That's
No,
sort of all I
I
need
like
to
the way
go
you
over.
reduce this.
Okay.
Okay, so we're in agreement on the goals, so all you want me to do is just,
You have to compile, and then the three
You
of you
have
need
to
to
bring
agree
it
on
all
final.
together, just
And
final
mine isn't
verdict.
that different,
Average your
so.
numbers.
okay, if it's not
Yeah.
that different, maybe we can just sign off on, unless you have some,
I
as far
would
as the
do
numbers
those,
go.
I think we sat with the goals, I think you just do this all in one packet, one fell swoop. Don't do a piece here and a piece there. You're better off
Okay, so when I get yours, I'll put
compiling.
them
Put them together and then we can do that.
Yep.
And we can sign it next week when we're doing everything else.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to do that, that's fine.
Okay, do we have anything else?
Just the assembly is meeting today, and Paul is on the agenda to talk, give them an update on the whole CLF wastewater litigation thing.
Excuse me, they were on Mindy Todd this morning.
I heard
Did anyone
that.
hear
Oh, they
that?
were?
I thought they did a really very good job.
Who was on?
And Andy and
Oh,
Paul.
Yeah, is Andrew going to be there to do that?
I don't think so, he's not listed here, so I wouldn't expect him, otherwise I would have expected his name on the agenda. And they're going to talk about, under the
What?
full assembly, the special commission. That's on the agenda.
I won't be able
Who's
to go
going
to
to talk about that?
Doesn't say,
There's
the
just
assembly
gonna be
as
a
a whole is
discussion
going to
about
talk about it. And I will say, to Jerry's idea, I think that's a good idea, that I'm going to ask Nancy to do a press release about the commissioners have been doing their town service reports. We can put the next ones that are going forward. You've got some upcoming ones
We have one tonight
next
at
week.
Arlene's.
You have one tonight, obviously we'll
6:30.
make that, but next week we've got Falmouth, Bourne, Sandwich.
No, not Falmouth.
Oh, not Falmouth, you guys can't, that's right.
I can't
Wait,
see
we
the-
moved that out.
Good.
But you got some upcoming ones which we'll
What do you need to do?
publicize,
Did you come
and we'll
up with anything?
publicize the services report on the,
To support what Jerry's comment, at every board of selectmen, there has been somebody that has asked whether or not it was going to be posted. So there is interest on the part of the board of selectmen. I think going forward, we probably will continue to publish the town service report and post it. We may not we may not go out to deliver it, but when we show up, if we've done that, we're in a position to speak to it.
Yeah, that's good.
But because I found that if we say that we're representing all of the constituents on Cape Cod, that we need to show them on a regular basis what we're delivering in their community.
Absolutely. And not only selectmen, but the citizens.
No,
Right.
in spite of the selectmen, the citizens.
Yeah.
especially.
Well, and I think we should thank Bud Dunham too, because at the special commission meeting, what, 3 or 4 weeks ago, he brought up this. He mentioned the list of things that the county has done for the town of Sandwich, because he's the town administrator there. And he went through this long, long list, and when it got to the end of it, he said he would never have the municipal financial resources to do any of that. And so in Sandwich, it would not get done, were it not for the county providing those resources, which allows Sam, actually in a way too, to use municipal resources for other things
right,
in the town.
focus on what they.
Yeah, so I think now it's really important because everybody's looking at their budget and saying, how are we going to make it this year or next year?
Yeah, there's just a report that says that towns are more dependent on the property tax now than they have been in, I don't know how many years. Oh, since 2.5 came into
Right.
consideration.
Well, remember, some towns get 40–50% of their revenue comes from state aid
Yeah,
in the
local aid,
past.
that's all,
And
yeah.
some towns get very low.
Right.
Like Falmouth, like, what are we down to? About 4.5% now of the revenues come from state aid. So the majority of all of the revenues come from the property tax.
Yeah.
Some towns are at 15. I've never looked really across the board.
Right.
The other thing I was saying to Dunham was, wouldn't it be interesting if we took the budgets of all the towns on the Cape, just the bottom numbers, and added them all up and see what they were, and include all the water districts and the fire districts and all the other pieces that are really outside the municipal budget, and add those in as well, and just see what that number would be. And if we were to provide services on a regional basis, how that could be reduced. Because
Yeah.
I'll bet you when
Yeah.
you look at it, it's going to be astounding.
'Cause
So he was going to do that.
I have an opinion that as important as saving money for the towns is that we need to look at those parts of what happens in the community that cannot be identified as being part of community character. Because I think that those all are eligible for, I'd call sustained regional services. Because if we just look at the money piece, when they get money back and it takes away from community character, they'll want to pull that back in. But in order to have a service that might last over several years, if it doesn't contribute to community character and we support that, then we can make a case for continuing with it for, let's say, for a long period of time and make a case for improving and being efficient, and them not wanting to pull that back in because it's not part of what makes a community a community.
Right. If I can just jump in there, I thought that Dave Schrofer made great comments before the special commission, and he was pointing out the regional services. And I know on the outer Cape towns, they've been grappling, is this a cost savings? And they've opted, what trumps that is the efficiency and the professionalism and the timeliness of being able to deliver those services. And that's where they see the benefit, first off, in regionalizing. Down the road, you'll have cost savings on some of these things right away, you might realize them, but that shouldn't be the driving factor. It's how can we do make these services efficient and...
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because sometimes, if we're doing it, we still have to pass on some cost.
Yeah, it's going to be some
sometimes
cost.
If you focus solely on the dollar, there's less incentive to sort of do it sometimes.
Well, the sad thing is that when the revenues decrease like they have, the first things to go are infrastructure. And that's the thing you don't want to go, because if you don't take care of your infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, the water mains, all of those things, then you can never catch up, and it costs 10 times more to do that. So the question is, how are towns going to deal with that? How are they going to maintain the infrastructure with these decreased revenues?
If I can use as just an example, in the last Wellfleet town meeting, they passed to join the dispatch services. And let me tell you, that was quite a discussion in that, those who didn't want it to happen liked being able to call and say, my phone's out or my lights are out. There was somebody there who could, call and maybe have a faster response in that person's mind than they would if they called like the electric company or that sort of thing. So those were the arguments against it, whereas, and then also, this isn't saving us anything, we're still paying this much money to go into it, but Chief Silverman's argument to that was, look at what we're gaining. There is a professionalism, there's going to be even more increased communication, that's going to be more enhanced down the road with Open Cape and different...
Your service is better.
Right, and the service is better, but people just really have a hard time seeing that message goes that far away and comes back that timely. And also, they're not firing the staff that does it, because that staff can't do what they're supposed to be, the other duties that they're doing, the administrative duties and the regular calls that a station would get.
Well, just think of this, the person who was on dispatch in the police station in Wellfleet can now go out to the consumer, to the person that needs assistance. That's an extra cop that's out on the street.
Well, yeah, or at least that person's, not saying, I got to put you on hold because I'm taking every emergency call through here, even if it's for the one accident. You know what I'm saying? So all of that, they're obligated to take every one of those calls, even though it's the sixth person saying, I just went by this accident on such and such a street. There's not time to do that in all things.
Well, you can't talk on the phone and be out, servicing the public.
Right.
Well,
these are administrative personnel.
On the continuum of regionalizing or not regionalizing, Paul Seeloff, I have to say, he's way out here on...
He worked in a government that worked, and he is the person who will grab every low end.
He's bold about
He is.
seeking those kinds of things out.
Okay, so I think we need to sort of wrap this up.
And I need to find out where is that supplemental, because you are bringing it over to the assembly. So
Oh, that you
put our
just
hands
signed?
on it. Yeah.
It was right there on the top.
Did you put it in
Let me
the
sign mine, because I
thing
have to
here?
go to a meeting in Wellfleet.
So we just need to find that so Bill can bring that to the assembly.
Oh, the one that,
The Stacy one.
Yeah,
that I did for
Stacy's.
Stacy. the $8,000. I got buried.
Probably did.
It's just a single piece of paper, Pat, so
Oh,
it
one
might just
piece
be
of
by
paper.
itself. You didn't
Transfer?
take it, did you, Bill?
$1,200?
No,
$100?
you
No.
passed it down.
No, that's
No,
a transfer.
It passed it down that way. You don't have to have it.
Maybe I stuck it in here.
Well, we'll find it. If we
Yeah,
don't
it-
find
you know what, I thought I
We
shuffled
need
it
to
right in here.
start sign- Do we have any other new business? Oh, we got a request from the town of Barnstable, or through the town of Barnstable, that Emerson College wants to film some, do some stuff over at the jail for a college project, and I've asked Mark to look into it.
Okay, so it's out of those.
Petitions for bids. Is this
No,
a,
that's not it. It would say resolution on top of it.
No,
oh, it says former House of Corrections,
no, it's not attached to anything.
Oh, it's not attached to-
Single piece of paper,
holiday.
you'll know it when you see it, and there's no red tag on it.
Oh, there's no red tag on it. Well, I don't have anything in here that doesn't have a tag on it.
No, it
Just
didn't
get
get
mixed
mixed
up.
over here.
Okay, I don't believe we have any other business,
Okay, so you're gonna have a motion to adjourn?
except for
Motion
signing
to
papers.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
You want a
Second.
table? Aye.
Aye.